Welcome everyone to our next client panel webinar. My name is Wim Kirchhoff. I'm the founder of TopLeft, and I'll be your host today. I'm excited. Today's topic is hearing from a couple of project managers, how they move from fighting chaos to leading from a position of real clarity. My story is I almost went bankrupt because I didn't have the right visuals, the right flow, the right project management culture. This goes back, I don't know, 8-9 years ago now, which is how we got onto this whole TopLeft journey. So excited to jump into this. Pop questions. So housekeeping, just pop your questions and into the Q&A section. You can put comments in the chat. Ask tough questions. Put us to the challenge. If you got questions for a panelist around their situation, put that in there. This time, last time we had a lot of questions, which is great. So we've actually put some of those into the slide deck as well, as you'll see, endpoints and such. Our facilitator again today is Bjorn Zrelov, who will introduce our two panelists and set the stage for us. So he's been in the software world since 1997, been in IT since 2005 in the MSP world, and currently he's helping many MSPs and vendors around the world just being better today than yesterday. So with that, welcome Bjorn. Good to have you back and facilitating for our community.
Yeah, thanks, Wim. Glad to be here. I'm glad to be here with the panelists and the TopLeft team and everybody that's either listening today or in the future. So in the first two panels that we've done so far, we focused on different parts of the TopLeft journey. And the initial one was, what it took to get onboarded to TopLeft and what are some ways and tricks to get the most out of TopLeft as quickly as possible. And then we got into sort of the ongoing management of TopLeft and keeping TopLeft and a tool like a visual project management tool front and center and potentially expand it to other teams. And one of those teams, depending on the organization where you went in, is the project management team. As I've gotten to know TopLeft and the customers, I've heard the story that our service team uses it, but our project team doesn't, and vice versa. In this case today, we're talking about projects, and we've had a little bit of fun with sort of the title of being project chaos herders, which I guess Wim talked about a little bit and how he started way back in the day, 8-9 years ago. And being organized is easy to say and sometimes very, very hard to do. But then the visual project management tool and moving into helping us move into being quote unquote heroes. I don't know that anybody on this call is going to want to probably claim that they are heroes, but that's certainly the goal, right? That we're really striving for a more organized group of tickets, tasks within a project. So let's get started. Bruce, Guy, I'll start with you. Bruce, thanks for being here. And we'll throw up your slide to show you some data about you. And we kind of have a Midwest theme going on today with Bruce and Frank, and even our third panelist who's not here today. He was also in the Midwest. But why don't we kick off with a two-part question, Bruce? How would you assess your own personal journey from project chaos herder to on the other end of the spectrum where you're more of a hero, or at least you're hoping to feel like a hero? And then second part of that is, what were you using to manage projects before you got onto TopLeft?
Yeah, so kind of like you said before, I don't think I'd consider myself necessarily a hero, but that's what we'll strive for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so before, we were doing things very much based on the dispatch portal, whether it was something that we would want to schedule for ourselves internally or schedule with a client. It was all kind of in the same place. And that was how we were trying to keep management over everything. And it became apparent that that another tool definitely helps when we can still use a dispatch portal, but only for the things that really need to be scheduled. That was probably, I think, the biggest change for us, and where we went from the chaos to the more organized manner and being able to do a pull method rather than a push method for work.
So when you say dispatch portal, just for clarity, I don't know the mix of attendees, but the dispatch portal is a function in the PSA that you use, ConnectWise. And that is one way within ConnectWise, out of the base package, so to speak, that you can look and see who's scheduled and who has capacity to some level, right? So
Correct.
yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Perfect. Frank, what about you? Where are you on your herder to hero journey, and what were you using before you got into TopLeft?
Well, we've been using ConnectWise PSA previously managed for a long time.
Right, I see that 20 plus years, it sounds like. Yeah.
We've been around for a long time. I've been doing project management and organization and integration for way longer than that. So transferring it into how we were doing it while we're using ConnectWise, to be perfectly honest, meant a combination, like Bruce said. There's the dispatch portal view. There's also the list of projects kind of view,
Right.
which, to make sense out of it for everybody else, meant a lot of doing things in other systems. Sometimes using Microsoft Project to try to give some overviews. Practically speaking, a lot of doing it in Excel, basically exporting information from ConnectWise into spreadsheets, adding other columns and notes and messages and sorts, and then sharing that and going over it.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I see there on your panel slide there, intro slide, it's no Excel sheet. So is that a goal, or is that where you think
that's
you are?
where we're at.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And the point being, doing it that way, number one, it's always out of date because you're not looking at things live, you're looking at a report. And secondly, it takes time to prepare that stuff. And
That's right.
so since you're creating spreadsheets and adding information to try to get people to focus on it, that information isn't there except in the spreadsheet. So unless people take a piece of paper with them. So
perfect.
That's what led us to do something different.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah, get away from the spreadsheets when you can and centralize it into a database. I mean, that's kind of the core of a PSA, the core of any, a lot of software systems is so that it is centralized data and information that everyone can access, and they're looking at the same data, right?
Right.
Or same information. So kind of a basic question, but I think it's a very valid question. What did it take for you guys to start with Bruce, for your organization to decide on TopLeft, and how long do you think it took, or would you think it would take an organization to get real benefit? Somebody who's already using potentially a PSA, ConnectWise Autotask, and then they layer on top of TopLeft. What is how did you decide, and how long did it take to get some benefit?
Well, it was pretty quick for us to decide to at least give things a try, because we have a pretty small user base for our project team. So it wasn't like a huge discussion on, is this going to be affordable? And by the time we had decided to try it out, it was basically a matter of going in there, creating some boards, which you'll see in some of our screenshots coming up. But I would say it's very easy to get up and running, just because it's building off of what you already have in ConnectWise. And so you can already get some views very quickly. And then I think after that, it's more of enabling you to change process to make things for the better. And that's the part that can take a little while, but it honestly, as long as you can get some buy-in, which at least for our team, it was very quick to get buy-in, just because it was so much easier to use than the list of projects that you would see otherwise.
Awesome. Yeah. Frank, what about you? What about your team?
Well, we had an interest in, again, we're a larger place. We have a lot of projects, some of them weeks long, some of them months long. So we have a lot of projects going on, but you always have a finite staff. So capacity, allocation of resources, scheduling is always an issue. It took us a little longer, not just to find the right product. And that's because some of us have come from enterprise type backgrounds and knew the concept of portfolio management and agile management and other kinds of things. But the first blush looking at the tools that were available. To be honest, a lot of them were kind of stovepipe. And we were not interested in another tool that we had to export, import, create data in. You know, we're back to like why we can do that in Excel. So as soon as we saw TopLeft and got the demo, and we recognized the value of its deep integration, we were up ready to do an evaluation, and it did not take us very long at all. Really less than weeks, and we were up and people were using it. Plus, we also have some seasoned project managers who have been wrestling with trying to do their projects and manage. So as soon as they got to see the tool and use it, they went, wow, okay, this starts to make sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's the visual aspect of it, right? I mean, I think part of it is the, you know, if you're in ConnectWise, I know ConnectWise, I don't know Autotask very well, but you know, it certainly has its core functionality and you know, working from a list versus having a visual to help you indicate. And that's kind of the next thing I want to get into is let's show some screens. And Bruce, we'll start with your screenshot. I know it's a little bit hard to see. It's a little bit of an eye chart for those who don't. If you're out there, you know, in listening and attending, I'm going to let Bruce sort of be your secret decoder ring. And so Bruce, why did you show this screen as this is the top left screen you wanted to show us and talk about? Go for it.
Yeah. So it is a very busy view, but as part of what I wanted to showcase in one of the like the value that we see is that you can see it all in one place and filter it from there. So you can definitely apply filters, and you'll see what that view or what that can look like, you know, further on. But you can filter this down very easily. But this also shows a top-level view of all the different items going on at a time. And so that was the first big thing that we realized is because previously going through the list of projects, you would then go through a list of tickets and a work plan for each individual project. So it's lists upon lists, and there's not a way to bring it all together. And this brings it all together. So this is all of our open projects, and there's a couple of service tickets sprinkled in there. But this shows what our workflow is today, right now at this minute, as people are updating cards and moving them around. And so our process is really the columns and how they move, you know, back and forth through. Just a general. Oh, you want me to give like a quick general overview?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, I'm wrapping my head around TopLeft as well, and the concept of swim lanes, and so is it, you know, you correct me if I'm wrong, but do you think of these vertical columns as swim lanes for your progression of your tasks/tickets as they go across from left to right?
Well, kind of. There's also the swim lane function, which is the instead of the vertical lanes, it's more the horizontal ones.
Horizontal lanes, yeah.
Yeah, but in a way, I mean, this is more of like the different queues of work and what they mean when they're in that particular spot. So the two left ones, the need tasks and estimation and backlog, those are generally my lanes that I'm managing. And then once I've released work into it to be ready to be worked on, that's when it goes into the ready queue. And that's where the project engineers can then pull the work that they can work on today, the most priority things being at the top of the list automatically. And then it kind of bounces between scheduled, waiting, and progress until it's finally complete.
Yeah, and then just real quick on we'll come back to this too, is the visual indicators on here that you have the ability to configure, you know, the thresholds, the conditions that trigger something to turn red, to turn orange, to stay green, whatever the case is, right? So I'm guessing that's a huge thing that you look at from a quick, you know, from a management perspective. Where do I need to pay attention?
Yep, and those colors at the very top of the column will give you an indication if you have problems going on there for you to look into it further.
Right, perfect.
I think the other, I can just jump in.
Yeah, go ahead, Frank.
The other benefit that I see to this kind, because we use some similar things. One of the hardest things to convey to people is the context of what we're working within. So you've got engineers and techs. They're looking at the dispatch portal. In the end, the tech is wondering, what do I do today? What am I scheduled to do? And I can work those tickets off.
Right.
In order to share mind, so people get a sense that everybody understands what we're trying to do and why we might be asked to do other things. Now, like Bruce said, those left two columns are things he'll be working on. He's not ready to ship off to a tech.
Right.
But you know what? Techs and managers need to know that. They
Right.
need they need to know what's sitting around that's in the pipeline.
Yeah, and that's the conditional. Yeah, and that's the context that helps, depending on your role in the organization and the team, to make the decision you need to make. But I mean, I think then we'll go to Frank, your slides next here, and it's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum where I think the word that we talk about here is focus. So if we can jump down to the next slide, but on this slide, there we go. This is a very drilled down version, right? So Frank, for you, one of the words that you talk about is focus, and what do I really need to drill in? And this is something where you've drilled down into a particular group of projects for a specific company, right? So a client. So if you're in a meeting, you can go down and look at, in this case, City of Gretna, and however many projects they have open. It looks like what I can see right now is 4. And that you can see that they have in-house prep and they have 2 projects that are actually in implementation, or at least 2 tickets that are related to a project that are in implementation. But yeah, so what else on this slide?
The other reason I wanted to show this is sometimes it's good for people we need to know what is going on for a particular client. Because sometimes there's dependencies. I'm not going to do this till they get that. The other part of it is what I try to do, and we're still working on, but what I try to do is make as much sense as we can into these cards so that when we meet or a manager looks at this or a project member, they get all the key information right there. They can see who's in charge, who's managing it, who's leading it if it's not the PM. We have a whole message set up. We use custom fields. In this case, they're mostly work in progress, but we keep track and let people know, is all the product here? Is the product partly here? And again, with the red, where's it at on budget? Because there's always somebody in the meeting. There's people in the meeting that are worried about budgets and timelines. So we try to make the cards give a lot of information quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And that can become customized to what you want, as far as what you want to see. On each card. Perfect. So why don't we jump down again to the next group of slides, and while we're doing that, this is sort of demo data, and what we wanted to show is a little bit of Wim, I'll turn it over to you to sort of describe, sort of starting from the highest level and getting an overview, and kind of how you can drill down in project meetings, and then Frank and Bruce, while he's going through that, I'll come back to you guys here in a minute and ask you sort of how often you're looking at these types of views. Do you have a weekly meeting? Do you have a daily meeting? What do you have from a working the views, right, perspective? So Wim, why don't you give us an overview of these slides?
Yep. So I've got a few slides here. This is an example of a Kanban for the project as a whole. So each card represents a project. And Frank's example has a swim lane by client. This one has no swim lanes. It's just showing everything. So it's customizable in terms of the columns you have. You can call them whatever you want. And then slot your projects in there. It maps to the project status in ConnectWise or Autotask. Drag and drop between it. You can show all the fields on there, the different warning situations. And then you can do the swim lane. I think there's like 8 or 10 different fields that you can pivot on for that swim lane. So you can do it by client, the project manager, account manager, the start date. So you can have a swim lane by week, what projects are starting when. A whole number of swim lane options there. Just whatever makes sense for that team. Every team's a bit different in how they want to look at it. Just like if you had a whiteboard in your office with sticky notes representing work, if you go to 100 companies, they would all have 100 different ways of doing it. So same idea here. And then you can show more data in the column headings, the sum of the actual hours, the average time. There's more things you can do. Of course, the more you add, the more clutter you get. So This is just one example of that. Do you have a question, Bjorn? I should just keep going to the next one.
No, please, yeah, drill down into the next slide.
Let's explain a couple things. You see two icons on the cards. The top one is this kind of a timeline symbol. That's our new Gantt chart feature. So I'll show some examples. If you click on that, you'll see a Gantt chart for that project. The second one with the plus or magnifying glass, that's a drill down. So obviously each project in your PSA has an ID. So when you click on this, it links to another board with that parameter specified, so drilling into that particular project. And again, you can design that however you want. So I'll show on the next one, project tickets by phase. So here I've drilled into that project, and now I see the phases on that particular project called Azure Migration. So there's an investigation phase, and the next one is migrate down below. So you can see for each phase, what are our totals on the budget and the actuals, our start date and end date, and then the tickets. So we can see a flow left to right on those tickets as well. The idea is, like as Bruce mentioned, doing a pull-based within each of these phases and projects. So you can see here, there's 3 tickets in progress in the red. I can just see that, even though the quality of this isn't very good with the screenshot I took. We can see at a glance what's overdue, what's falling behind, what's neglected, without having to drill in. And then these are actual tickets, so you can, engineers can work from this, managers can work from this, put in their notes, time entries, assign resources, all of that. Fully manage a ticket and the project from here.
Can I interject something here, Wim? Quick?
Please, yeah.
If you don't mind. See, now as the overall senior kind of project administrator in our place, and again, we have lots of projects. One of my jobs, okay, project managers and IT managers, other people are supposed to go through and make sure everything is done. But I'm the reviewer of that. Before it gets passed on to billing for final billing and closure, I check all that.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I check that. Because the point is, if you've looked at a long project, if you've got 60 tickets or 70 tickets in 7 or 9 phases on a project in Manage, it can easily miss, buried 4 phase sub phases deep. There's one ticket still dangling out there, or something that didn't get done. Whereas from a visual approach, when someone says, I think we're all done, I just bring the project up. And if everything isn't completed, I go, oh, no, what's this ticket out there? Now, sometimes it's just a matter of drilling in and figuring out that, oh, somebody did it. But again, vagaries of ConnectWise. Oh, they entered their time on a ticket, but didn't mark it complete, or some sort of thing. But other times, something got missed. Easy to drill. I mean, it's visual. Takes 2 seconds to see, instead of trying to go through pages and lists.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, that's it right there. So was there something else on did you have another slide, Wim, that you wanted to bring up?
Just say, this one had swim lanes as well, but so this one is by phase, but that's by no means mandatory. Like when you drill into your project, you could do it by engineer or one of the other fields as well. By board, there's a whole bunch there. So anyway, these are the common ones. I'll show you the next one. It's similar, showing your projects by client. Mm-hmm. This is a lot, I guess, like Frank had, just with more projects on it. So I'm filtering by this client called Key Pool in the ConnectWise demo database, showing all their projects. And actually, I'll point out here is that this kind of view is great for sharing with the client. With the client portal feature, is the client can log in and see where all the projects, all the tickets are at. They could go from the big picture, drill into the project, the phases, the tickets, and even see the checklist on the ticket. And add notes there and see exactly where it's at. And you might decide to hide tickets in a certain status. If it's like internal stuff that the client shouldn't see, you could hide that in their version of the client portal. But it's a great way to engage with them and shorten up repetitious meetings and long emails on updates. Just have your engineers put in good notes and the client can see it.
Yeah. So Bruce, I'll circle back to you. So on a cadence, daily, weekly, what is your use of views like this, and what how do you structure that in your team?
Well, it's actually weekly. On Mondays, I do individual updates with different teams. I guess that's just my
Yeah.
my way of doing it. So we have our team meeting with the project engineers, catch up on what might be overdue from last week, what we got to focus on this week, and just give an overview. And then I also update the rest of the teams here with the projects that we currently have going on, whether it's with the like our customer relations team, so that they know what's going on with their customers, and the service desk team, so they know what issues might come in to send over our way, that kind of stuff.
Right. And this slide, project tickets by resource, are you leveraging a tool like that to determine capacity of a particular person on your team?
Yeah, in a way. And I think I would use this more, especially as our team grows and as we have more resources to view. This is going to be much more useful. At the moment too, I end up using filters a lot. Filters are really easy because I can also bookmark them and all that kind of stuff. But I can certainly see this view with the swim lanes per resource being extremely helpful when you have a team of, a little larger than what we are.
Right. Frank, what does your weekly cadence or daily weekly cadence look like as far as,
Well, of course, I'm looking at it just about all the time. I keep it up on another screen, but we meet formally every Tuesday morning. And our approach is that we've got to, now that we have the right tool, we actually have the owner, business development, customers, everybody, all the key people, we go through it. And we use these various, we look at it in different ways, but we basically all to get all our heads around and focused on what's going on, what's, where are issues, what do we got to do this week, what do we got to do next week, what's coming down the pike, do we have any disconnects, and somebody needs something. So it's also kind of an interactive session where a couple of us are busy asking those kinds of questions, because it's easy to say, well, yeah, we're on track or whatever, but you like to ask, like you're doing here, facilitating. These are facilitated discussions so that we get to the root of where we're at. Everybody's focused, and we optimize the use of our time and resources.
Yeah, no, it's the proverbial weekly, where are we project wise, what's in the pipeline, where is it in the progression, when a resource is going to be available again. I think that's one of the most challenging things with a project-based business, or when you do have projects in a business, is capacity planning, resource planning. Anything you can do to help that solve that problem on a continuous basis is critical, right? So I think another thing we wanted to show that's relatively new, Wim, is the other feature you talked about, which is, and please ask any questions in the Q&A. You guys are a very quiet crowd today, which is fine. But if you do have questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. There you go. So just give us a quick overview. This is something that's relatively hot off the presses, Wim.
Yep, this is from the last several months. It's a request we've had for years, probably for 5-6 years, and it kind of didn't fit at the time. It didn't fit our wrong paradigm of Agile and Kanban. And hey, Kanban should do everything. We realized, no, there are times that Gantt is the right tool, and there's other times that Kanban is. Particularly about client conversations or capacity planning. Clients want to know when their project's going to start and finish. Some idea. Hey, it might change, but what is that bigger picture? So we've added that using the existing data coming out of your PSA, flows into TopLeft, and we're pushing it into the Gantt chart. So this example is looking at your portfolio as a whole.
Yeah. So this is the projects across all your clients.
Yeah. Internal. Yeah, it could be your internal projects as well, because that also impacts resources.
Yeah.
And red, which just means it's off track with dates or budget.
Well, yeah, we had that. We have a question. I may have missed, thanks, Dan, for the question. I may have missed this, but are your text engineers recording WIP and time entries in TL or CW or a combo? So I'll let Bruce take a crack at that one.
Sure. It's actually the same thing, TopLeft and ConnectWise. So when you enter time into TopLeft, it's actually it's just putting data right into ConnectWise. With that, it's an API integration between the two. So it's really just look at TopLeft is just a visual view of the data that you have in ConnectWise. That being said, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so just to clarify, so they're actually entering time in, because I think that's his question, Dan, is are you entering time in TopLeft or in ConnectWise? And it sounds like it's just TopLeft.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of a combo for us. I let
Okay.
people decide how they want to put their time in.
Okay.
And it's even a combo for me, so I'll put time in as well. If I'm doing it on site, I find it's easier to just do that one in ConnectWise because a lot of times I'm putting multiple entries in one go. But if I'm doing work here at my desk, I really like the timer feature of TopLeft, where I can just start and stop that timer across multiple things. And it's very efficient when I'm at my desk doing remote work or internal work and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the timer feature is one of my favorites to have that ability. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's good stuff. And Dan's saying, I think I'd want to keep time entries in the same platform. So that sounds good. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, so in TopLeft, we don't store any data. The only thing we keep is like when you drag and drop cards above each other. ConnectWise has no, or Autotask has no concept of that, but everything else is synced back to your PSA. So it's not a silo at all. So the idea of the time entry is the technician pulls that one ticket, they click on it, they see their notes, enter the time, do the work, it's done, on to the next. That's the idea of single piece workflow and not bouncing between systems. Grab it, you're doing your time as part of doing the job. You don't do it at the end of the day. It's like real time as you do the ticket, you enter your notes, your work in progress, complete it, on to the next.
Yeah.
And one more thing, if you want me to add on to that.
Yeah, please.
This was a feature that was added a long time ago, but it was while we were still a customer when this was added, is that when people are moving cards around and doing things in TopLeft, the API will integrate that user account in TopLeft with a user account in ConnectWise. So in the audit trail, it's all that same user instead of just an API admin or something generic.
Nice, perfect. So this Gantt chart is a little bit different. Tickets in a project.
Yeah, so just drilling in, looking at a particular project. So what you'd expect for a Gantt chart.
Yep, perfect.
Showing when those tickets start. These are, the ticket names are cut off there, but you can obviously resize that. So that's all I had for screenshots.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, again, so we're here for questions. If you guys have them, please fire away. Bruce and Frank, anything else that Frank, I'll go to you. Anything else that you want to add from a, if somebody, this is a question we did during the warm up, I just remembered it. If your team or someone came to you today and said, you know what, you can't use TopLeft anymore. We got to get rid of it. What would be your reaction, and what would you do as a result?
Well, I'd be very disappointed. And in my case, it might be time to say, well, I'm just going to retire then. I don't have the time, the energy, and the effort. I don't want to sink back into the chaos.
Yeah.
On the other hand, knowing that we've climbed out of the chaos, I don't think anybody's going to say that here.
That's awesome. What about you, Bruce?
Yeah, well, my first question would be why.
Yeah.
And then I'd be looking to justify and see if I can, what we can do to keep it. But honestly, I don't know. I'd start looking into something creative. We're not software developers here, so maybe I would get like an IP camera and point it at a whiteboard with some columns and move some sticky notes back and forth and make my own Kanban.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do either one of you follow somebody online, or is there a Kanban or Kanban, however you want to say it, source that you go to on a continuous basis besides TopLeft? Because they have a ton of information.
Not directly.
Okay.
I mean, I look at a ton of things, but
yeah,
TopLeft is what I follow.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, there's not anything that I go to on a regular basis. I can say that I like audiobooks and I listen to the goal, and that really helped me understand some of the processes behind, what's going on here and what we can use a tool for.
Mm-hmm. It's a proven methodology, that's for sure. In manufacturing, I guess is where it got its start, right? But project architecture companies use the same methodology too, right? Wim, do you have anything else that you want to share? I don't see any questions.
Nope. Yeah, so Bruce mentioned the goal book. There's some other books we recommend as well. Big one is Making Work Visible by Dominica De Grande, highly recommended. Clients love that one. So that's on our resources page. I'll put a link in the chat for that. And then we've also got these weekly implementation calls for clients. And even if you're not a client, welcome to join and ask questions and have a demo. But helping to create board, tune them in. If you want to help with the drill in or the Gantt charts, ask us anything about the practices, Agile, Kanban. Look at the new features that we've been rolling out a lot over the last 6 months. And any sort of Q&A coaching on flow, project management, and dispatch, we're happy to help. So that's twice a week to cover different time zones at the links there. And obviously, if you've never seen TopLeft at all, we can get on a one-on-one demo as well. Just book that. That's what I had there.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't see any other questions. Bruce, Frank, any other last nuggets of wisdom for all the people doing project chaos herding and or somewhere on the spectrum from that to heroes?
Oh, I can't think of anything. I don't think it's really worth doing an evaluation or a demo. I don't think you regret working with it.
Yeah, I think that the only thing that I would recommend is be ready to change up some processes that you're currently doing. That's, I think, the kind of the point of getting a tool like this is to enable you to do your processes different and better. To try to get a tool that's going to make you do your same processes better isn't probably going to provide a whole lot of benefit. So that's probably my main 2 cents. But it's really fun to do. I enjoyed I enjoyed the process of changing process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's this is nothing original or sage-like information, but it's like any tool, whether it's a software tool or literally a tool out of my toolbox back here, I have to know how I'm going to use it most effectively, right? And I got to know what tool to use for the job that's at hand. And the more I invest in knowing the tool and what it can do, and testing it and being willing to change my procedures in order to be more effective, I think that's sort of that ongoing continuous improvement mentality that is one of the founding pillars, I think, of Kanban, and it's sort of the methodology, right? But in general, whether it's the tool is, just because you buy the tool, it's not going to just drop in and make your life switch a light switch and everything's better, right? So I see a message here, Jamie, from Jamie. Thank you. Wim, I guess you'll hit that.
I'll cover that.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, if you all are attending, go ahead.
I just have one follow-up question, just based on what Bruce is saying, is that, yeah, it requires some change in how we think about our work. I agree with that. But then Frank had experience, he could jump into it really quickly because he already had that mindset already. So it's a bit of advice, I guess, around that for MSPs, because maybe it's a spectrum on where they're coming from, where they're at today. Some could get up and going in a 2-week trial, but some may need more training, more help to get there.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think that the other, I guess, thing to, maybe not a closing comment, but a comment would be that, you don't have to do this alone, right? You don't have to, there's resources. TopLeft has a ton of resources. So there is definitely a path, a path for you to go down, regardless of where you are on that spectrum of, you know, whichever end of the spectrum you might follow or wherever you are. And I think that goes for really anything in the MSP industry, right? There are peer groups, there are advisors, there are, you know, there are resources that are available. Some are not, you know, not necessarily free, some are, but that all depends on how quickly you want to go from point A to point B, or from where you are today to where you want to be. So yeah. So, well, from my perspective, thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Wim.